considerations. Tau ij equal to tau ji. That is the symmetry of the stress tensor. Now, why these are important is because we want to write an expression for the linear momentum conservation, where we will apply these considerations for expression of the surface force. So if you recall the Reynolds transport theorem, I'm just writing it. So this is the Reynolds transport theorem for any arbitrary extensive property capital N. So as we know, and in fact we have applied it for linear momentum earlier, that if you consider the linear momentum, and also stationary control volume, that is the control volume is stationary, that means the relative velocity and the absolute velocity are the same. So we are left with, in the left hand side, the rate of change of linear momentum of the system, which is the resultant force on the system, and in the limiting sense, that is the force acting on the control volume. You have to keep in mind that small n is capital N per unit mass, so that is the velocity v. So this being a vector equation, you can write it also for the individual scalar components. That means we can write this as the vector equation like this, or the individual components along x, y, and z, or 1, 2, and 3 as per the index notation direction. So instead of this, vector here, if we just write resultant force on the control volume along the I direction, so in that case the v will be replaced by the velocity component along the I direction. That is the only change. Where ui is the velocity component along the direction I. Now the force is due to the surface force plus the body force. What is the surface force? So for surface force, we know that the force per unit area is the traction vector, and its ith component is Ti. So this is the traction, this is the force per unit area. So this over the control surface, and body force is expressed per unit volume over the control. So this is the body force. Now for the traction vector Ti, we will use these two equations that we are having at the top. So we write this as because tau ji is equal to tau ij, so we will replace it with this one. Okay. So when you have this one, our next job, in fact, this is what we did for all the derivations when we started with the integral form and then arrived at a differential form, is to convert all the terms to volume integral. So one straightforward way of converting the area integral terms to volume integral is by using the divergence theorem. So the divergence theorem, for its use, this term has to be written as a dot product of uh, any vector with the normal vector. So in an effort to do that, let us just simplify what it is. So this is tau I1 eta 1 plus tau, sorry, tau I1 eta 1 plus tau I2 eta 2 plus tau I3 eta 3. The reason is that you have the repeated index j, so there is an invisible summation as per the Einstein's notation. So now our job will be to express this in terms of some vector dot with the eta vector. So to do that, you can write this, of course, by forming this new vector. Okay. So in the process, what we have done is, if you see these expressions, this is the eta vector in terms of the three direction cosines, eta 1, eta 2 and eta 3. This is a new vector. Of course, we have formed it artificially, but we can always form like this. So we can call it say a vector tau I, because it has a single index I, the other variable index, the other indices are as usual 1, 2, 3. So to express the momentum balance, which we will write at the top, it is essentially this equation where we are substituting all the terms. So the first term, what we will do before that, as per custom, this unsteady and advection, or this flux, both of the terms which are there in the right hand side here are actually kept in the left hand side. In the fluid mechanics, normally we write the acceleration term in the left and force in the right, whereas Newton's second law writes the opposite. So as per custom of the fluid mechanics, we will is equal to this is the surface force and body force per unit volume if it is Bi. So this is the control volume. Okay. Now we will clean up the rest of the page and write. So the next thing that we will consider that it's a non-deformable control volume. We had earlier considered stationary control volume. Non-deformable control volume means the volume of the control volume is not a function of time. The only thing that it makes is this unsteady turn you can take to the inside. Now we'll apply the divergence theorem. So the first thing is that we consider a stationary control volume also. We recall that means this becomes same as the absolute velocity. So by divergence theorem, so you can write this what? So the vector is this one, that is dot with eta. So this is equal to divergence of the vector dv. Similarly, this also we can apply divergence theorem. So this will be divergence of tau I and what is divergence of tau I? See, when we have a divergence of a vector, say you have a vector.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, yes.
Sir, for body force, it should be rho bi into dv.
No, we have assumed B is body force per unit volume. Okay. So what you are talking about, is if that is considered as body force per unit mass, then that rho comes. Is Bi?
Yes.
It is per unit volume. So you simply multiply by volume. Okay. Now for the divergence calculation, let us take an example. Let us say that you have some vector. Let us give some name. So vector B. So B1I plus B2J plus B3K. So divergence of the vector B because it is this operator is this one. This is called as the Nabla operator. Sometimes loosely we call as del. Nabla operator. So from here we can see that the divergence of a vector is simply, so if the vector is v, we can write this as so these two indices are the same, and you have the repeated index, that means it's a summation. So in the same spirit, this is the volume integral. So exactly the same notation. Where the name of the vector here was v, here it is tau I. That's all. So next what we will do is we will collect all the terms. All are now volume integrals. So here is also a divergence. So we'll use the same thing. So this velocities j component is uj. That is what I have written. So this term is same as this term. So this expression, as we have seen earlier also, that you have a function integrated over a control volume equal to 0, and that domain of integration is absolutely arbitrary, and that can be accommodated only if the function which is integrated itself is 0. So we are left with the equation So in fact, this is a differential equation of momentum conservation, and it includes all sorts of forces, including viscous forces that will be there in this tau ij. So very, very generic expression. And in that way, a very powerful expression also. So this is known as Navier or Cauchy equation, whatever. Navier equation or Cauchy equation. You can well understand that there was a lot of contribution by the famous mathematicians Navier and Cauchy to arrive at this equation, and therefore this is recognized by giving the name of the equation in terms of those exceptional mathematicians. Now at the end, why do we require all these equations? We require all these equations because we want to solve for the velocity. This is what is required. So to solve for the velocity, so let us just give a recall to all of us that objective is to solve for velocity. So u1, u2, u3, the three velocity components. In fact, this is invariably one of the most common targets in solving any problem in fluid mechanics, to understand the fluid, to get a say mathematical expression or physical observation, whatever about the fluid. So this is one of the weapons, this equation. We also have another equation, which is the continuity equation, and we should not forget that, because that is also involving the fluid flow field. So this is the divergence of rho into V that I have written in the index notation. So this is the continuity equation. So these two equations that we have. Let us see now what are the unknowns and what are the equations. So unknowns, we will let us talk about the most general case. So unknowns will be density. In the most general case, density may be known, may be constant, whatever, but in a most general case, it may be also be unknown. Of course, the velocity components and the tau ij, there are 6 unknowns because we have earlier seen that although it could be 9 components, but because of tau ij equal to tau ji, you have 6 basic independent ones, and those are your unknowns. So in that way, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 6, total 10 unknowns. Number of equations, independent equations. You have the continuity, that is 1, and you have the 3 components of this. So this is called as momentum equation. Neither linear nor angular, just momentum, because linear angular motion is also embedded in it. The very fact that tau ij equal to tau ji is embedded here. So it is a combination of linear and angular momentum. So we just call it momentum equation. 3 components of momentum equation. That means you have 4 equations. So you have a great disparity where you have the number of equations, independent equations, not matching with the number of unknowns. In fact, much greater number of unknowns than the number of equations. So we have to bridge this gap. How we can bridge this gap? We have to bridge this gap from the constitution of the fluid. That means tau ij's, this, which are the so-called stress. This should be a function of what? Rate of deformation. So this is very, very important because for a typical solid, you have the tau ij as a function of deformation, but not rate of deformation. For a classical fluid, the stress is a function of the rate of deformation. For several materials which are sort of fuzzy between fluid and solid, this could be a function of both the deformation as well as the rate of deformation. But we are not considering here. We are considering a classical fluid scenario where it is just a function of the rate of deformation. And to understand that functional characteristic, we also have to know how do we write mathematically the rate of deformation. And this was one of the motivations of studying the rate of deformation in the fluid kinematics chapter that we had learned towards the beginning of this course. So now, when we write the rate of deformation, so let us write the rate of deformation tensor. So in the most generic form, the rate of deformation is related to the velocity, some spatial derivatives of velocity, partial derivative. So we have earlier seen that there is something physical that we can retrieve by writing it just in this way as a simple identity. By expressing it in terms of a symmetric and a skew symmetric component, and the skew symmetric component is related to rotation, and the symmetric component is related to deformation. So this is what is related to deformation, and this is, this is just related to rotation. So the rate of deformation, I mean the general velocity gradient tensor, this is velocity gradient, this is not rate of deformation. So the general velocity gradient tensor, only a part of that is related to the rate of deformation, and that is this, this part which we call as EIJ, just a name. So tau ij should be a function of this one, but how do you write that function? That is, one of the very important things to consider. We'll see how we write that. So first of all, we do not know whether it is linear or non-linear. So tau ij, first of all, tau ij is a second order tensor. This E is also a second order tensor. So tau is a second order tensor, E is a second order tensor. They could be related non-linearly also, as a one as a non-linear function of that. But because most of the common classical fluids are having linear behavior, so we will consider a linear constitutive behavior. That means we assume Newtonian fluid. So Newtonian fluid, in the most general sense, will have tau. If we call it a tensor, we sometimes give these two things, just two lines at the top. It is a linear function of the rate of deformation. But well, conceptually that is, we write it in this way. But how do we write it mathematically? That is something which requires a bit of mathematical grammar understanding. So Newtonian fluid, this is the most general definition, not tau equal to mu du dy. That we have to understand. That the general definition is tau maps linearly with E. So now when we say that tau maps linearly with E, there is a second order tensor and a second order tensor. There is a mapping between the second order and a second order tensor. That is what we should write, that linear mapping. You have to remember that when we had a vector that was mapped to another vector, it was mapped via a second order tensor. For example, the traction vector Ti was tau ji eta j. So that means a second order tensor was mapping the Ti vector to the eta j vector. So here the second order tensor has to be mapped to the second order tensor. So the mapping function is a fourth order tensor as per the tensor theory. So that means if you write it in a proper tensor index notation, so fourth order tensor will have 4 indices, right? Just like second order tensor will have 2 indices. So this is what we have written, the mathematical version of this physical mapping. So you have a second order tensor, you have 2 indices. It maps to, so I and j has to be fixed because those are fixed in the left hand side. So I and j is fixed here, and k and l are dummy, they are repeated. So because they are repeated, there should be a summation over k and l. So another k and l through this E. So now, so this is actually, you can call, say, Newton's law of viscosity for an arbitrary fluid, because this E will contain the rate of deformation. Now we have to realize that what is thisCijkl? So this is a collection of certain numbers. How many such numbers are there? I will be from 1 to 3, J will be from 1 to 3, K will be from 1 to 3, and L will be from 1 to 3. So the possible combinations is 3 into 3 into 3 into 3. So 9 into 9, that is 81. So you have 81 coefficients for this. What it means is that you require 81 parameters to describe the physical property of a fluid, that is how it responds to a stress via stress rate of deformation relationship. But this is unphysical. We do not see any practical fluid for which just for the stress rate of deformation relationship we have to use 81 coefficients. In fact, for the most common one like water, we use just one coefficient, which is the viscosity. So this is mathematically fine, but it can be simplified drastically. So to simplify that, we'll make a special consideration that the fluid is homogeneous and isotropic. So homogeneous means not functions of position. That means these coefficients are not functions of position. Okay. Isotropic means that in fact they are also not changing with the orientation of the coordinate axis. So that means, let me give you an example. Let us say that you have a coordinate system x1, x2. I'm not putting x3 in the same diagram. So they are 90-degree oriented with respect to each other. Now you apply a rotation so that x1 comes here and x2 comes here. So that means the orientation is now changed of the coordinate axis. But if this mapping is independent of this change in orientation or direction of the coordinate axis, we say that it is isotropic. So one particular way in which we can establish isotropy, therefore, is invariance due to rotation. So now that we will apply. What we will do to apply that we will convertCijkl to a scalar. So as if we are playing with vectors, tensors, scalars, etc. This is a sort of a mathematical jugglery with which if you get a little bit experienced, you will be able to play. So we want to play with thisCijkl in a way that we want to convert it to a scalar and a homogeneous and isotropic scalar. So let S be a homogeneous and isotropic scalar that is formed usingCijkl. SoCijkl has 4 indices. That means it's not a scalar, and therefore some additional things are needed to convert it to a scalar. And let us say that the additional thing that we are considering is a vector. So why? Because this rotation, when we are having the directions are you can imagine that if you have say a vector, 2 vectors like this. So when you give rotation, what remains preserved is the angle between the 2 vectors. So a vector is a very good way by which you can demonstrate isotropy, you consider vectors 2 at a time. Just apply rotation, but the angle between them will not change. So that is something which is invariant to rotation. So we want to form the scalar by using vectors. And this of courseCijkl. So using Kijkl and vectors. So you have to remember that the scalar has no index. So when you have Kijkl 4 indices, you have to nullify those 4 indices by repeating say I1s, J1s, K1s and L1s. And you have to remember that if you are considering vector as a donor of indices, each vector is donating one index. So you require 4 vectors, each of which will be donating one of the indices I, J, K and L. So 4 vectors, say A, B, C and D. Okay. So to write it properly, I will just write this one. S is equal toCijkl AI, Bj, Ck and Dl. Okay.Cijkl AI, Bj, Ck and Dl. Okay. So once you have this as the scalar and a homogeneous and isotropic scalar, or homogeneous you do not write separately, but whatever coefficients come out, you just consider that they are not functions of position. So now we can perceive it in just a different way. So consider these 4 vectors. So the angle between vectors is by considering them 2 at a time, then you will get an angle. So how many ways in which you can consider A, B, C and D vectors 2 at a time? So you have one pairing with A and B, then the other pairing has to be C and D, one pairing with A, C, and other pairing with B and D, one pairing with A and D, and other pairing with B and C. These are the possible combinations. Remember that it's a combination, so A and B and A are the same. So when you consider these pairs as pairwise combinations, and what we want is this angle to be preserved, and angle is manifested by the dot product. So if you have 2 vectors, say A and B, that dot product is represented by what? The summation of the products of the corresponding components, that is A1 B1 plus A2 B2 plus A3 B3. In terms of index notation, it is AI into BI. So that is summation of AI BI actually, because it's a repeated index. Therefore, just in terms of pairwise, if we write, so one of these will be AI BI. So let us say we use I for this index for A, J for B, K for C and L for T. And so C D will be CK DK. This is one of the things. This one. The second one, A and C. So A I C I and B and D. And the third one, this one. Now it's a linear combination because it's a linear mapping. So we consider this as some prefactors which are linear factors. So let us say alpha plus this is beta plus gamma. So these are just coefficients. So see, in a very interesting and very simplified way, from the 81 parameters, we have come down to just 3 parameters, alpha, beta, and gamma, which are not functions of position because it's homogeneous, just by considering the isotrope. Now, if you see the left hand side, so you have left hand side means this one. You have AI, BJ, CK, and DL. Right hand side, instead of BJ, you have BI. Instead of say DK, DL, you have DK. So you have to switch indices. So I will show you just a simple trick of switching indices. So I am introducing a second order tensor. This is called as Kronecker delta. So how it is defined? Defined that this is 1 if j is equal to I, and it is 0 if j is not equal. So this is called as Kronecker delta. I can imagine that for those of you who are not quite familiar with the rigorous mathematical treatment of a subject, this might look a bit odd and bit different. But you have to imagine that we are studying advanced fluid mechanics course. So we cannot just sort of keep on simplifying things. We have to understand at least some of the rigors of the subject, and that is what we are trying to do, as to give justice to the advanced nature of the subject. So if you see now, you can write, for example, Bi is Bj into delta Ij. Why? See, delta Ij is equal to 1 if j is equal to I. So this will be 1 only if j equal to I. So this is just like an identity. In all other cases, it is 0. So in that way, we will switch indices by using this Kronecker delta. So that will write in the immediate next step. So alpha AI. So Bi is Bj delta Ij. Then Ck and DL. So Dk is DL delta KL. Next, plus beta, AI is there, Bj is also there, Ci to Ck, so Ck delta Ik, and Dj to DL, so DL delta JL. Then plus gamma, again AI, again Bj. Now Cj to Ck, so Ck delta Kj, sorry, delta Jk. And Di, so this is DL delta IL. So we have done nothing except switching. So after this switching, we can take AI, Bj, Ck, and DL common from all the terms. So alpha delta Ij delta KL plus beta delta Ik delta JL plus gamma delta Jk delta IL. So now compare the left hand side and the right hand side, and I will show where the comparison comes. So you have this one and this one. So because they are same appearing in both the sides, so you must haveCijkl equal to this. So the finding from this part of the analysis is that we can write an expression forCijkl for this homogeneous isotropic. Yes, yes.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yes, yes.
Sir, to define two double scalar, we have introducedCijkl, fourth order tensor quantity. So in that equation you wrote we converted that vector quantity to a scalar quantity by multiplying ai bi ck dl.
Not scalar quantity to vector quantity. If you see, uh, we wanted to form, so understand the objective. We wanted to form a scalar from a fourth order tensor. So there could be various ways of doing it, because fourth order tensor has 4 indices. You have to repeat those 4 indices just once more and multiply, because if you repeat, then repeated index is a dummy index. There is a summation over it, so the index is gone. So you would require 4 indices. So one possible way, not the unique way, is to take help of 4 vectors, each of which will donate one such index. So those vectors are A, B, C, and D.
So from that we calculated means there are three possible a b c d a
Combinations,
c,
yes.
three possible combinations. Okay, so that one is clear. But after that you wrote alpha a b ai bi ck dk. How that
Yes.
iikk
So
and
okay.
iijj?
Yeah, let me answer that. So when you are considering the isotropy, as I told you that one of the major outcomes of isotropy is that no matter what kind of transformation you do, for example rotation, say there are 2 vectors, you give them a rotation by virtue of the rotation of the coordinate axis. The vectors will go to new position, but the angle between them will remain the same, right? So angle between vectors taken 2 at a time can also be indicated by their dot product. Say A dot B, that is magnitude of A into magnitude of B into cos of theta, right? So that means that that if this theta is preserved, that means A dot B is preserved. So you can take that pairwise sort of contribution, which is influencing the isotropy, is reflected by the dot product, and the dot product of A and B is represented by AIBI. So that is why that kind of representation.
Yes, sir.
So that is so this is the thing. Now what we will do, we will write the expressions. So now alpha, beta, and gamma, these are these are essentially 3 material constants. So these material constants, when we say, we have to keep in mind that these material constants, they will also follow all the physical principles that we have considered so far. One of the physical principles is the symmetry of tau ij. Now, if you see very carefully, the tau ij, it contains what? It contains 2 parts which are called as hydrostatic. Hydrostatic means basically in the limit when there is no fluid flow, the stress in the fluid is due to pressure. When the fluid is moving, the stress is due to pressure plus the viscous effects. But when the fluid is not moving, the stress is only due to pressure. So that limiting condition is called as hydrostatic. And when the fluid is deforming, there is a deviation from the hydrostatic state, which is called as deviatoric state. So this is a combination of hydrostatic plus deviatoric. So now, if you consider that this deviatoric, so when we wrote this tau ij is equal toCijkl into EKL, although I have not written it explicitly, you have to imagine that this is only the deviatoric component. So to honor that, I am putting this deviatoric here. So the reason is that this is related to deformation, and deformation is not relevant in the hydrostatic case. So this tau ij is equal toCijkl EKL. This is for the deviatoric, and because of the symmetry, you must have tau ij deviatoric is equal to tau ji deviatoric. So that meansCijkl is equal to Cjikl, and Cjikl. So what is that? You just have to replace or swap j and I. Okay. So now if we apply thisCijkl equal to Cjikl, I mean what we have to understand that delta ij and delta ji, they are the same. These are all symmetric tensors. So if they are equal, then that leads to you can write beta into this one delta ik delta jl minus delta jk delta il. So this beta minus now is equal to 0 if you bring all the terms together. Just you are bringing all the terms of these in one side. So because these are just indices and no guarantee of what will be individual values. So the only possibility is that you have beta is equal to gamma. Okay. So you are now in a position to write the deviatoric stress tensor. So let me write this. So now we know beta equal to gamma. So this we also call beta. So instead of 3 constants, now it is 2 constants. So what is the tau ij deviatoric? This isCijkl into EKL. So this entire thing multiplied by EKL. So what is that? So alpha into delta ij into delta KL into EKL plus beta delta IK delta IL EKL plus beta delta JK delta IL EKL. Now remember, I and J we are not able to play with because they are fixed in the left hand side. We'll keep I and J. So now, but K and L. So delta KL is equal to 1 if L is equal to K. That is the definition of the Kronecker delta. So if L equal to K, this becomes EKK. So alpha into EKK into delta IJ plus beta. Here also we do not play with I and J. So I we keep as it is. EKL is equal to 1 if L is equal to just a minute, delta IK. So this is delta JL, right? I think. Yeah. Just this is delta J. Okay. So this is delta J. So only this I and J. So now EKL, this particular expression, this will boil down to something if we recognize that in the delta expression, this will be 1 when k equal to I and L equal to J. So when k equal to I and L equal to J, this will become 1. So k will become I and L will become J. So this will become 1 into Eij. Then plus there is another beta. Then here also you have this J and I. You are not playing with that, but you also know that these deltas are 1 when say k is equal to J and L is equal to I. So when k equal to J and L equal to I, it becomes Eji. So there is just one more step which will complete this. So what is Eij? So let us write this Eij. This is half. This is what we defined. The rate of deformation tensor. So you can see clearly that Eij is equal to Eji. That is its symmetry. So when you add these two, it will simply be this term. So and if you write EKK, that means E11 plus E22 plus E33. So E11 will be this one, E22 is this one, and E33 is this one. So you can write this as summarily del U K del X K. So that means the tau Ij deviatoric is alpha into this one plus beta into this one. Now, from our understanding of the physics of kinematics, which we have done earlier, what is this? This is volumetric rate of strain. That is divergence of the velocity vector. So this is volumetric rate of strain, and this is the rate of deformation, general rate of deformation. So this coefficient should be related to volumetric deformation, and this coefficient should be related to the general deformation, which could be linear and angular. So these coefficients, to recognize their corresponding physical implications, just are given some universal symbols. This is given a symbol of lambda, which is called as volumetric dilation coefficient. And this is our viscosity, because the stress versus deformation is related to viscosity by the physics of viscous flows. So to summarize whatever we have done today, so we can write that tau Ij is the total of the hydrostatic plus the deviatory. The hydrostatic is just due to pressure, and we write it as minus P delta Ij. Why we write it as minus P delta Ij? This is only normal stress. So normal stress when J is equal to I. Otherwise, the pressure has no shear component. Shear component is J not equal to I. And minus P because positive stress is tensile positive, but pressure by definition is compressive positive. And the deviatoric is lambda so this is the manifestation of the Newton's law of viscosity for homogeneous, isotropic and Newtonian fluid. So I know that all of you are familiar with the Newton's law of viscosity that you have read in high school and then junior college, that is tau is equal to mu du dy. And I have told you earlier that it is not wrong, because du dy is a special case of the rate of deformation. But the most general case is this one. So this is the generalized, not most general, general only up to Newtonian along with homogeneous and isotropic. So this is actually a mathematical statement of the Newton's law of viscosity for homogeneous and isotropic fluid. So we will stop here today and we will continue in the next class.